I'm just going to get used to the camera being on.
It's recording. And then just start when you feel comfortable.
The reality of what I'm doing is I'm trying to reach the entire world to make them realize that a change needs to be made. And if people like myself don't stand up,
Nothing will change.
nothing is ever going to change.
People don't have the guts to do what you're going to do.
So here it is. I don't know whether to say hello ladies and gentlemen or just hello internet or hello world, but the reality of it is hi. My name's Jason Robert Coulter, and the reality of it is this is difficult for starters, but I have a chance to make a difference in the world, not only within my life, but the reality of it is thousands of people's lives around the world. Because, first of all, it was September 14th, when it actually happened, when it became official. I made world legal and medical history. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. And one of the other reasons why I'm doing this is because I have an opportunity to make my government stand back on their heels and actually have to pull their heads out of the sand and take some accountability for the mismanagement of our country, the mismanagement of the sectors of government, and it's just become pathetic. And the reality of it is since the beginning of my life, I have been getting screwed left, right, and center from my government and the different factions of government, and I essentially want to say a big to my government. And the reality of it is at this point in time, I wish I was an American, because if I was an American, this crap wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have to expose my life, tell my story on the internet just to get people to listen, and finally get my government to say, okay, we made it wrong. So whatever, here it is. I need the help of lawyers and my country and everyone else out there that can realize that I have all the facts here. I've got police reports, doctor reports, letters, emails, court orders. I've got 5 boxes of legal evidence. Everything to prove everything that I'm saying within my story tonight is true. So if anybody wants to try to come at me saying that anything in this is a lie, bring it. And I'm going to shut you the hell up in an instant. So for the lawyers, here's a little tidbit. I've already done the work. And the reality of it is when I get further along in my story, you're going to realize that this is why I'm doing this. Is because I'm tired of taking on phone calls of lawyers that are going to be like, oh, well, I'll take your $500 for a consultation fee, and then at the end of the $500, I'll let you know whether or not I'm capable of doing the job. Well, you know what? 80% of you out there can kiss my lily white ass. That is half the problem of what's wrong with our country to begin with. Is you figure that because you have a degree that somehow that you're smarter than I am. Well, guess what? I've got the paperwork to prove you're wrong. So... Alright, okay, here's a little golden ticket for the lawyers out there if they actually want to help me do this. And this is to all the people out there that think that I might be trying to do this to gain financial gain. I'm not. I'm doing this because I need closure. I'm doing this because I have trust me, I'm going to make a difference in people's lives all around the world. Just because of what I've achieved in the past 6 months. But here's a little thing for the lawyers. I can actually prove from when I was, 7 years old when I first blew my knees out, the doctors had me on aspirin for, a year and a half or 2 years or even 3 years or something. It was a few years that they had me on aspirin every single freaking day. Now, anybody knows that taking aspirin every day, especially when it's 10, 15, 20 aspirin a day, rots out your gut. Needless to say, by the time I was 10 years old, I had more medical problems and dealing with things that people my age, and I'm 35 years old, would ever have to deal with, because of the fact in the early 80s, when they came out with aspirin, they thought that this was a miracle drug. Then a few years later, they realized that the acetaminophen content in it rotted out your gut to the point where you had no stomach lining, you're getting hemorrhoids, you're getting freaking ulcers. Well, guess what? I've got the records to prove it, so you know what, aspirin? Screw you. And all the other drug companies out there that go take 4 of these and call me in the morning. So, getting past that, just for the little golden ticket for the lawyers, so that maybe they'll actually finally realize that there's a lot more in this other than just information and changing. The reality of it is they can line their pockets with this. And the biggest part is when we're starting was the day this happened. Can you see that clearly in the camera? February 10th, 1997. I'll point out where that line was, is where my knees were. I'm sorry about my hands, but it's, I'll hold it with my right hand from now on. That's where the car stopped, 5 feet up a snowbank. We did like 5.5 full revolutions. That's a front angle of it. We got T-boned by an off-duty cop. And funny, here's the back of his truck. Notice how the skid marks don't even stop or start until after he hit us. Kind of funny, huh? Well, the reality of it is that is the day that the royal screwing from my government essentially started, and it hasn't stopped. And that's why I'm doing this, is because I need help to bring this to an end. Yes, okay, we settled with ICBC. I got my settlement out of it, but the reality of it is the entire process was a giant cornholing, and no one's going to take any accountability for it. Well, guess what? Now I've got the papers to actually expose the truth of what happened, and everything that's led me up to this point, and why I'm doing this. So, first of all, here's me. That was 10 days after the accident. 2 days after I got out of the hospital. Now, keep it short. I'll try to summarize. I fractured my skull here, here, and here. Like tulip kind of concept. Broke my jaw in 2 places. Brain was covered in like toonie-sized contusions. Like pretty much my entire brain was bleeding. Damage to the brain stem, like nerve damage, swelling, snapped my collarbone in half. I don't remember if it was both my lungs that were punctured and collapsed or if it was just one of them, but essentially my entire chest cavity was crushed. Like pretty much all my ribs were broken. What else? Shattered my pelvis. Like your hips are like this, and you got your pelvis, and then you have a front structural bone. Well, it was my front right structural pelvic bone that completely shattered in over 20 pieces. Then my hip broke here, and so essentially the only thing that was holding on my actual right hip was a connective tissue, because everything else was just completely obliterated. And we're talking liver damage, kidney damage. And I lost pretty much majority of the memory of my life previous to that day. I didn't know who I was. The only person that I recognized was my dad. And he was the only person that kept me calm. I couldn't remember who anybody was. It was months before I could even realize who I was. And this is essentially where the hell started. First of all, it took them, what was it? They got me into the hospital that night. Then they airlifted, I almost died in the hospital, they airlifted me to Cranbrook. Cranbrook freaked the hell out. They're like, why the hell is he not in the ICU already in Calgary? So they airlifted me from Cranbrook to Calgary. And I ended up in the ICU there for, I think it was about 3.5, 4 days before I almost killed the head nurse. And that's actually one of the reasons why my shoulder's still buggered up. Is because this was one of my first actual vivid memories that I actually have. I woke up in the ICU, don't see anybody I recognize. I'm surrounded by glass walls, beeping shit. bunch of lights. I have no idea where the hell I am or anything. And so, of course, I try to prop myself up on my one good arm. Head nurse comes around, and of course, she's trying to forcibly push me into my bed. Oh, I should keep this short. Anyways, long story short of it, third time she went and snapped my arm in behind my back, and there's even record of it. She acknowledged the fact that she did this, even though my shoulder was snapped completely clean. Like, you can actually still see the break, because I've actually lost about an inch and a half in width in my shoulder, because of which she snapped my arm in behind my back rather than getting the orderlies like she was supposed to have me sedated and put back into my bed. And so, of course, by instinct, I went and snapped across my chest, grabbed her by the throat, and because of the pain, I didn't let go. Like, I didn't do it intentionally. It was just instinct. And then the last thing I remember is looking over and seeing like 7-8 needles in my ass and being surrounded by people in white suits. So, needless to say, they sent me home to Golden. And because of the fact that I was being belligerent, even though I didn't know where I was calling everybody Mike, and I thought I was at McDonald's the entire time, they let me sign myself out. Didn't know who I was, didn't know who anybody was, and they let me sign myself out of the hospital because they didn't know how to deal with me. Imagine that. Hospital staff, professionals, and I use that loosely, let me sign myself out. So, needless to say, I walked around for 2 years, everything broken, completely unaware of it. Not aware at all. Then, January 25th, 1999, I moved to Vancouver because one of my friends understood that, like, I wasn't myself anymore, and I hadn't been since the accident. And so, I moved to Vancouver to meet with a new lawyer and try to figure out what the hell to do with my life and try to get some medical help. And within 3 hours, they had me moved into a brain injury recovery house. And within a week, they came to the realization that I had been walking around for 2 years with my brain bleeding profusely. My pelvis was still shattered, hip was still broken off. Like, pretty much everything in my body was still broken for the most part and bleeding. And I had been, like, I even went back to fighting fires for like a month and a half or whatever the hell it was. Like, I used to fight forest fires. And so, yeah, like, I was humping up and down the frickin' mountain with fucking shattered pelvis. So, moving along. Then, sorry, this isn't easy. After years of neuropsychological testing and doctors and specialists and this and that, they had deemed me as incapable of taking care of myself, of making proper decisions, whatnot, and they put me on medication. And I got entered into an order of incapability. This is what happens when people get put into accidents or not put into accidents, but they're in accidents and they're no longer capable of making sound decisions like paying their bills or feeding themselves, sometimes washing themselves, because of the damage that's done to their brain and the damage that was done to their body. And unfortunately, my brain was hurt to the point where I'll admit there was many years of my life where I did not take very good care of myself and I needed a lot more help than I was getting. So, anyways, I got entered into this order of incapability. They told me that I was never going to be capable of living on my own, holding down a relationship, driving a vehicle, holding down a job, yada yada, anything that everybody else takes for granted. And this is where I wanted to make people realize that I made world history. And my lawyer even checked it out, and from what I understand, even the judge was kind of pissed off at her for not bringing me to the court date that day, because I had it removed. I proved every single doctor that has to do with neuroscience and brains wrong. Because the reality of it is I'm the first person to ever have this done. I had a Supreme Court order of incapability removed. So this is why I'm hoping that people will take me seriously in the fact that I need my country's help. I can prove I've got police reports, accident reports, court transcripts, like, you get the idea. I've got absolutely everything to prove every single thing that I need to get out there. I've got cops lying on the stand in Supreme Court. I've got cops releasing personal and confidential information before they were allowed to. I had a doctor, 2 years ago. I came in because I hurt myself fairly significantly, and they had me on a gauntlet of freaking antidepressants for about 1.5 years, despite the fact that I hate pills and refuse to take pills, and I no longer take pills. And I only took the pills because I was trying to not be so sad all the time. And I went in the one day and to go get my prescription renewed, and my hand started twitching out like it normally does. And he looks up at me, he's like, "You have Parkinson's." I'm like, "Dude, what the I'm like, I come in for getting the stitches done on my arm." Well, if you want to look at that, you can go to my website. It's www.thelast4yearsofmylife.webs.com. It's .webs as in spiderwebs, WEBS.com. The last 4 years, the word for, the last 4 years of my life, .webs.com. Anyways, I looked at him and I'm like, "Dude, I come in to get my freaking staples out of my arm and get my antidepressant medications, and you tell me I've got a lifetime debilitating disease." And he's like, "But I'm 99% sure." And I'm like, "Well, then send me a referral." And he's like, "Well, unfortunately, our clinic's protocols say that they're only allowed to deal with 2 problems at once." Really? You're 90% sure that I have a disease that has to be treated with medication? And trust me, I've tried getting help for this, and everybody looks at me like an idiot, even though we went onto the Parkinson's disease website, and I've got every single freaking symptom. And yet I can't get help. Anyways, so then I tried to get my medical file, which they gave me this stack of papers like this thick, and it showed maybe like half of the appointments, but the only problem is they never took into account Shoppers gives you a printout of every single prescription that you go for. And I've got like 3 times the amount of prescriptions as what they're showing as appointments. So where the hell's the rest of my file? Because he even wrote in my file that it was there. And yet somehow mysteriously the 2/3 of my file where all of those appointments exist doesn't exist. Funny, huh? Then for the last part of my story, and this is the part that pisses me off more than anything, just because of the fact that if I was an American, it never would have gotten to this point. The person that I've been going after, or trying to go after, would have been in prison well over 1 year ago. And yet in my country, our government officials, Jason Kenney, the immigration minister, Stephen Harper, everybody else that's involved, you put your head in the sand like a bunch of ostriches, put your hands in your pockets and go, "I had nothing to do with it. I don't know what's going on. That's not my job." Well, you want to know what? When you take the job of running certain factions, yes, it is your job at times to look at cases on an individual basis to realize that wrongs have been committed. Now, here's the thing. It's all detailed within my website, all the details of what happened, but the reality of it is I'm a victim of immigration fraud. And I've already actually proven it. Unfortunately, I proved it too well for the divorce, because I went and wrote the judge a 1-page letter and a 1.5-page letter in response to the lawyers, to what my ex-wife's lawyers were saying. And the reality of it is within a week he signed off on the divorce. Here's the papers. I won. Never met the judge, never went to court, nothing. I won. Without even showing up to court, represented myself in divorce court. Now you're going to tell me that this is a common thing? I don't think so. Everybody knows that within our country, essentially these things are pretty much one-sided, and typically the guy gets screwed. I won. So this should give you some kind of concept of the fact that this needs to change. My ex-wife is supposed to be coming up for her immigration hearing in 2 days, and the reality of it is I can prove fraud on about, 6, 7 different cases. conspiracy, theft, slander, assault, abuse, and get this, my own freaking mother is co-conspiring with my ex-wife, and I've even got the Facebook emails to prove it, because I tried to get help from my sister, and my mom told her straight out that I'm nuts, and that I'm completely delusional, and I need to be on medication and be put back into a facility. Even though I just showed you the papers, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just like all of you, maybe a little smarter than some, but the reality of it is I proved everything, and yet I still can't get anybody to do a damn thing. Canadian immigration's like, oh, well, if you can't do this and blah, 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 or whatever. So, the reality of it is I'm trying to bring this to a resolve. I knew maybe I should have been more subtle, like police reports, everything. The reality of it is a change needs to be made. If a person can come into our country fraudulently, screw over someone like me, turn my own family against me, then... And here's the point of where I can prove every single part. Every single ounce of her sworn affidavit for our divorce is a lie. Every single point. And I can prove with the police reports, everything. Like the police reports I got, still haven't opened them. Want to know why? Because I didn't do anything wrong. Yet she lied her way all the way through the courts until finally I had to fire my own lawyer. Because I went and told him straight out, I'm like, dude, all you have to do is take the evidence I have. I've already done all the legwork, present it to the judge, case closed. We're done. Then all of a sudden he realized that I was having trouble with the public guardian and trustee because they were acting like a bunch of pricks. So they started dealing with me only via email, which is why I've got all the records of everything that happened, because they wouldn't take my phone call. So I sent them an email, they sent me a response, and I saved every single one of them. And these pricks hung themselves out to dry because my lawyer went and lied to the courts, lied to the public guardian and trustee, and then tried lying to me about half the information, misrepresented me in court. I got held in default because of his misrepresentation in court, and yet I can't even get anybody to hold him accountable, even though my public guardian and trustees paid him $8,000. And he never even represented me in court, and I went and fired him, and even the judge told him to sit down and shut the hell up. So, anyways, can you think of anything else?
No. There's the letter.
Yeah, I even tried to go to the extent for when I was going to prove myself to the judge that, like, I'm not what everybody seems. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not an alcoholic. As a matter of fact, I'm a fairly healthy person. I just happen to have constant shit happen to me throughout my entire life. It's just non-stop. Like, I've literally broken everything in my body. I've been dead a few times. Like, fuck me. I'm sorry about the swear words, but yeah, I asked if I could get some people to try to be my wingman, and my buddy's mom wrote me a letter. I never opened it, and I can't do it now because I know it's going to end up making me cry. But the reality of it is those people that know me know that I'm an honorable and an honest person. And that's what it comes down to, is I'm asking my country to stand up and listen to someone who is honorable and honest. That if it came down to it, I would give you the shirt off my back if you needed it. Because that's what the world is supposed to be about, is helping people. And that's why my contact information is still on my website. If you want it, my phone number is 778-834-2222. It's one of the easiest numbers in the world to remember. My contact information is on the website, www.thelast4yearsofmylife.webs.com. And you can grab some kind of concept of the shit that I've seen and done and lived through. But anyways, I'm hoping that my country can finally restore my faith in my country and in humanity, because at this point in time I have none. And as far as I'm concerned, my government, my country can straight up kiss my ass if they're not going to do anything about this. And as far as I'm concerned, once I get this freaking waiver to let me back into the States, another government cash grab, even though I've been in the country twice, but never mind, I won't get into that one. I would rather move to the States and be a freaking American than live in the country where our country doesn't do a damn thing about anything, even when you've got a giant black spot on the wall, you're saying, look, there's a black spot. And they're like, no, it's not, it's purple. So, anyways, I hope I made my point clear enough, and I hope you can go to my website and realize, how in depth this gets and how messed up it is, and I need help, and this is going to be a big closure for me, because I give up after this. What's the point? Because no one's helped me to this point, and my girlfriend's helping me now, but... Anyways, thank you for your time. I apologize if I rambled or if this has gone on for too long, but thank you and good night. And for all of those, one last thing. Emma, the whole reason why I haven't called you on Christmas or your birthday, sweetheart, is because Grandma made it so that legally I can't even call the house. Grandma's messed in the head. I can't say that, I'm sorry. Grandma needs help. And the reality of it is she let Auntie Susha make Grandma's house a point of no contact, even though there's no proof of anything and everything's a freaking lie. This is Grandma's way of getting back at Uncle Jason. Sweetheart, I love you more than anything. And I miss you, and I'm sorry. I really do miss you. Goodbye.